everyone and welcome to another video. Today's video is going to be my very belated 1 month in Japan video because truthfully we've been here for almost 2 months. But better late than never. So I figured I would speak to you guys today about my experiences over the last month and a bit in Japan. Okay, the first biggest hurdle that we had to face was the weather. I know it's really obvious that it's like summer and everything here, but the weather was so different. It was so freaking hot when we got here, like ridiculously hot. I know I've said it before already a number of times, but the humidity was insane. I've never experienced proper humidity before, and Tokyo in the summer is just ridiculous. It's just, you're constantly sweating, like constantly sweating, and it's just such an uncomfortable feeling. And it took so much time to get used to because the place where I'm from has very dry heat during the summer. So our summers get to like 40 degrees Celsius and it's like really hot, but it's dry heat. It's not humid, it's not sweaty, it's just hot. So I never really appreciated that there was such a difference between the two, but there really is. And not to mention in our last apartment we had a really crappy aircon situation, so it was just hot all the time and it was so like demotivating, and I never felt like exercising or doing work or doing anything productive. It was just constantly like blah. But the heat has reduced so much since we got here and I've gotten used to the humidity, and this apartment is so much better with heat. This apartment retains cooling way better. It doesn't heat up in the mornings. It doesn't have a ridiculous number of windows. It's just really nice. It stays really cool. I love this apartment so much. The second biggest shock after initially moving here was the earthquakes. Within like the 2 weeks after we got here, I think it was, there were 3 reasonably big earthquakes, and 2 of them happened in the same night. Where I live, there aren't any earthquakes. I've never experienced an earthquake. I think there was one earthquake once when I was like in year 8 or something, and like everyone talked about it. So just being in random earthquakes was really kind of scary. Like, it's a really weird feeling to be in an earthquake, which is going to sound really stupid to anyone who experiences earthquakes all the time. But as a person who's only just started experiencing earthquakes, they're really weird. For the very first one, I couldn't work out if it was just like my leg was shaking, like I was like holding it at a weird angle and it was shaking, and then like I realized that it was actually the whole floor. I don't know if I still have it, but I was actually filming a YouTube video at the time when I experienced my first earthquake. So if I do have the footage, I'll put it in right here. So yeah, earthquakes were a big thing to get used to. Now anytime I hear like a distant rumble, I'm just like, earthquake is coming. Those were the 2 really big things we had to get used to. There's been like no earthquakes over the last like couple weeks, so that's been totally fine. All of the other stuff that we've experienced has been like little things that we've had to get used to. For example, something really obvious, like food shopping. Obviously Japanese supermarkets are very different to Australian supermarkets, so we've had to like completely change the things that we eat, which again sounds really obvious, but it is something that you have to get used to when you move to a different country. So for example, we eat a lot of cucumber now because cucumbers are quite cheap here, like a lot cheaper here than they are in Australia. So yeah, we've been like learning how to cook with the stuff that we can get, and that's been really fun. We have, however, terribly screwed up quite a number of times just from like not being able to read kanji or misinterpreting things at the supermarket. For example, this is a bag of organic surgorn. I didn't know what surgorn was before I bought this because I thought that they were rolled oats. So I accidentally bought something that is definitely not oats. I'm still looking for oats, by the way. If anyone knows where is a place in Tokyo that sells decent oats, can you please let me know, because I miss having porridge. Yeah, surgorn. It's a grain, but yeah, it's organic, so that's nice. I really should have just slowed down and properly looked at the packaging, so that is totally on me. We haven't had like any proper horror stories at the supermarket. Most of the stuff we buy is reasonably safe anyway. But buying the organic surcorn has certainly taught me to slow down, and if you can't read the packaging, at least look at the thing that you're buying. It's all helping me improve my Japanese anyway, which is a really, really good thing because, as I've said before, I can speak Japanese, but just not that much. I can only speak like a little bit. I can very, very proudly say that there was a 3-year-old on the train the other day and he was speaking to his parents and I could understand everything he said. But I absolutely love being immersed in a language that like isn't my own. I mean, admittedly, it does get a little bit like, not frustrating, but it can be a little bit flustering sometimes. It's a very uncomfortable feeling if you don't know what's going on around you, or if people are speaking to you and they're speaking really, really quickly and you don't understand what they're saying. Like, that's not always the most comfortable way to feel, but I love speaking Japanese. I love speaking a language that isn't my language because I just find it to be the most fun thing ever. To be able to understand what someone is saying to me in Japanese, I just think it's so, so cool, and the novelty has not worn off on me yet. We've been to Japan so many times before and we've been here for a while now, and I just still love speaking Japanese and understanding Japanese, and it's just really, really cool. Other than that, everything's gone really, really smoothly. We moved into this new apartment last week. That was ridiculous. His suitcase, right? We have these big, huge suitcases and they're really, really old, so they're really dodgy. And his wheel fell off when we moved into the first apartment. And 5 minutes into our trek between the old apartment and the new apartment, the wheel, another wheel of his suitcase fell off, and the third wheel melted completely because he was like dragging it. It wasn't turning anymore. So Tyler had to drag his like 30+ kilo suitcase on one wheel. Once we finally got to the realtor's office and then we like signed the contract and got driven to the apartment and like moved into the apartment and all the things, we just basically collapsed. Poor Tyler's shoulders were really, really sore because if you only have one wheel on a suitcase, basically you're taking that whole weight, whereas with my suitcase, I still had 4 working wheels, so obviously the like heaviness is dispersed, so it wasn't nearly as hard for me as it was for Tyler. So he was very, very, very unlucky with his suitcase. But yeah, we managed to survive moving house. I hate moving house so much. Also, we registered our address yesterday. That was a journey and a half. It was so much more stressful than I thought it was going to be. I don't know how it works in other countries, but in Australia, when you move to an address, right, the postal address of that house belongs to you. If you live in the middle of nowhere, sometimes you have to register your post with a PO box because it's like too hard for postal people to go out and deliver your mail. So sometimes you need to have your mail be at a postal box. But Japan is a very, very different system, and I might be wrong because it's a little bit confusing. So if someone does actually know and I am wrong, please correct me. But basically when you move in Japan, you don't have your postal address until you register for your house. So before you register your address, you cannot get mail, I think. So it's a really, really big thing here that like legally you have to register your address within like 14 days of you moving, unless it's a temporary address. So we went and registered our address at the place where we're supposed to register it. This place said that they had English support, so we were like, good. But despite it saying that it had English support, there was no English on any like buildings or any signs, and it was like really, really confusing, like the place where we had to go, and everything was in Japanese, which is totally fine because it's Japan. Things are supposed to be in Japanese. Our maps on our phones weren't working. We were running out of time. We were trying to find this building where we had to go. We had no idea. Nothing was clear. We ended up just walking into this random building that we thought was supposed to be the building. And it turns out it was the building. We were very, very lucky. It looked like the type of building that would be like a place where you would register your address. So we went in there and I walked up to the person and I asked her in Japanese if she could understand English, and she said no, and I was just like, great. But then I just basically got out my residence card and I said Jusho, and she gathered that we wanted to register our addresses, so she gave us the forms and we filled them out, and we filled them out incorrectly, so we had to fill them out again. So we did the whole thing. We got our addresses registered and we got the addresses printed on the cards and we did everything. And then we had to get health insurance, so we had to go organize that, and by the end of it we had been like waiting and queuing and standing and trying to find this building for hours and hours and hours, and we left the building like once everything was done. We were just like, we're never moving again. We are never ever moving. It's such a learning curve moving to a different country, because like obviously it's going to be different than it is in Australia. Like I'm sure there are some really stupid and illogical things that you have to do in Australia that don't make sense to people from other countries, but it's just but oh well, we did that. We did the adulty thing. We have a registered address. We can order things online now, so that's really good. And we've like done everything we had to. But yeah, in addition to that, I've just been doing heaps of university work and writing and all of the fun normal stuff. It's been so much fun, genuinely. The last like month and a half or almost 2 months have been so much fun. I love living here, like genuinely I love living here. So yeah, that's basically my recap of the last month and a half-ish in Japan. If you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comment section down below. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and have a lovely day.